No need to panic.
A lot quicker, faster beats if it's something.
Yeah.
Alright, flip on our mics here. Monday, September 18th, 2017, 5:30 PM. This is a budget workshop for the 2018 fiscal year. Council, clerk treasurer, and we have the building inspector, Schrader. And we have Mr. Schrader here, maybe we can start with whatever you've got.
Certainly, thank you, Mayor and Council. I volunteered with Corey to come tonight just to kind of go over and introduce this very, very briefly. The building inventory project is a much larger project than, of course, we can cover tonight. But we did at least want to kick this off by getting a list of the buildings, the infrastructure that the city owns, and start some conversations about budgeting for future needs, replacement, maintenance, and things like that. And so we did that, but unfortunately, as Corey and I discovered, that we neglected to include the electronic sign and then also the septic system at the park down by the lake. So that's information that I'll be including as soon as I have it developed. I think I agreed for like 3 hours to the project, and we're under that now, so I'll be able to complete the rest of that work and get that to you guys as soon as it's available. The septic portions, especially the one related to this site that service the council or the city hall, the fire station, and that park, that's going to be a big one. Joe and I talked about that as well. There's some big ticket items in here that are going to be pretty expensive. But as you guys have already identified, it'll be beneficial to start setting some money aside so that when the replacement comes for the roof here or the septic system there, that there's some money set aside so you don't have a big shock all at once. So that's what I attempted to do here, was to go through, and this is something that you can review at your leisure, and I'll be available at future meetings to discuss this in more detail. But at least this is a starting point that we wanted to get things itemized and at least have that conversation be started. And Corey, what did you anticipate or as far as some monies to be set aside for capital improvement?
Right now, I added into the budget was $15,000.
And I think that's a really good starting point. The items that I listed in here come in over that, but if that were the council's direction, I think that would be a good start, you know, as far as putting money aside in the capital improvement program. So there's some needs or some maintenance items that could be addressed even this year. For example, some of the pavilions down at the park that are in need of some paint. The restroom structure, for example, that could use some attention even this year. Just because those exposed beams and the soffit and fascia, the paint is starting to peel away to the point where if that were cleaned up and painted, that would help the longevity of that building as well. If that were left for any length of time, a couple more years, you'll see from the pictures there, that's going to start affecting the structure itself. And then that's going to get even more expensive. So we can tell, I know there's a lot on your guys' plate, so I at least just wanted to introduce it, and I volunteered just to come and say, here it is. Please email me if you have any questions, but at least that'll give you some light reading, you know, in the weeks to come. Any questions on that?
So what,
You look like you do.
the numbers that you came up with, said Corey's got a good start at 15,000. Do you have any idea of how your numbers came in?
I did add that up, and it's around 20, but again, that's just a start. But that would include $9,000 to demo this old shop building. That's nothing that needs to happen right now. That's just an estimate that I got from a local contractor, just so that we don't have to wonder, boy, if that building ever did go away, what would it cost? Well, I just took a number from a local contractor. I asked him to drive by and take a look at it, and that actually came from Andy from Greenway Excavating. He was doing that demolition down on Malvern Boulevard. So I took that opportunity to ask him about this, and we visited and we talked about it. And because I don't think that this building is really worth saving. At least Joe doesn't think so either. It would just be easier to make it go away someday. So that's one of the suggested items that you might want to budget for in the future. Whereas the paint on the pavilion and restroom down at the park by the lake, that would be a more immediate need, less expensive, and also something that would just get us on the road towards more capital improvement and maintenance of the existing structures. So again, this is just a start, something for you to look through, and as you go through this in the weeks and months to come, I'll be available to come back and address anything specifically as you would desire. But I think Corey mentioned $15,000, that's something that I think would be wise to perhaps set aside to capital improvement. And if some of those monies were available even this year, you know, you could look at some of these painting projects or improvement projects and things like that. It's only gonna get worse with time. The bracing, for example, the shelters as they're labeled, down at the park, I think there's 3 or 4 of them. They're metal frame structures. They're solid and they're gonna last a good long time, but there is some racking, you know, that I would think would be a good idea to do some diagonal bracing there just to stabilize those a little bit better. Things like that we can prioritize again in the weeks and months to come, but at least this is the start of the project. We wanted to get in front of you tonight, so hopefully you can see the importance of that and perhaps earmark some monies for 2018 for capital improvement. That was the purpose behind it. The other subject I wanted to put in front of you was the document retention efforts we've talked about. Oh, I'm sorry.
I do have a question. In your inventory, during your inventory and looking at the buildings and going through with Joe, do we know when the last time any maintenance was done on these buildings, such as routine painting, anything like that? Has any of that ever been documented as to when staff has done that? Or do we-
I don't have information in that regard, no.
Painting and stuff, I mean, I would have to say no. Unless Joe has the documentation,
Okay.
that's something you can ask him when he comes in.
Okay,
But, you know, as far as roofing and stuff like that, we have permits and files and that, for that kind of stuff. When roofs were replaced and things like that, that we can do.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor O'Brien.
just a rough calc, if I understood your question, how much, if I just went through page by page and we should set aside money for this thing, if I add it up, it's 16,000. So,
Thank you.
I think that was what your question was.
My question? Go ahead.
Mine.
I'll never talk in dollars.
Right, anything else on the building inventory at this point? All right, we'll talk about document retention.
The system that we have in place right now is working quite well. The storage of building permits, for example, decks, new homes, whatever comes our way, we're saving that information electronically. A lot of cities require 2 paper copies of everything, where right now we're requiring 1. And then the document retention is achieved by saving PDFs electronically in our central server at the office. That's way a lot of businesses and other jurisdictions are saving their plans now is electronically. If you ever needed to retrieve it to be sent via email or what have you, you can just attach it as an email. If you ever needed to recreate that form or that copy of the plans, you could just hit print and then you would have it again in paper. Obviously, it takes up a lot less physical space. The quality of the documents are retained and they don't degrade over time. We're seeing some files from yesterday and the day before we started doing this just fade. You know, the ink fades, the paper fades, they get folded. Unfortunately, sometimes things get misfiled in the actual paper files, so they're not in the right place, so you can't find them right away. So what we're doing now is we're actually saving the building plans for a new house, like I say, as well as the deck electronically, and it's working out really well. They're there, they're accessible, they're easy to maintain, and I would advocate personally and professionally that we start looking at what it would take to go back and archive the existing paper files. It's a big project. I'm not gonna kid you on that, but I would propose that we eat that elephant one bite at a time. And the important step is to take a bite. And I would say that I would advocate for some monies to be set aside in order, I could provide some staff time for this as well, to organize a system and say, here's how it's gonna start. Whether Lori and Corey have any time, once this system is established, as far as going back to inventory the files. But the first step, we already have the main framework put into place as far as how it's to be done. But what I would say is you start at the first drawer on the top left, and you go through the files to organize, pull staples. There's a lot of duplicates, unfortunately, that could be just simply thrown away. We have to be very careful about what we throw away, but there are a fair number of documents that we don't need. A lot of times I come across files of pictures from ice and water and pictures from different inspections. Well, if that inspection's been satisfied, there's no need to keep a lot of that information, so you could simply recycle it and get rid of it. That's gonna make those files a lot skinnier. And then you'd also sort it so that you know what's the building, what's the deck, what's the septic, and organize it in such a fashion that when time is available and you scan it to save it electronically, the actual paper shuffling is already done. And I would venture to say that it would be pretty efficient to do maybe with an intern, a summer intern or a part-time person to do that physical, take it, scan it, and save it. Going through to kind of triage those documents is gonna be a little bit more important that I do that, or Lori or Corey, somebody that's more, and I'm not saying that they have the time available, but I would be certainly available to do that. I have a good handle on what the state requires for document retention, and I also have a good handle on what we can safely throw away, what we can get rid of. So I would be the one to go through that. I'm advocating for the council to set aside some monies for next year to start that process. I would feel comfortable starting it myself, and then I would have some staff available that would be able to come in and continue with that effort. How far we can get in 2018 is gonna depend on just how far we can get. But I think it would be important to start, because those files are not getting better with age. So I was hoping to have some conversation with the council, and if you're agreeable to that, we'll start. If you don't wanna go down that road and you wanna maybe do it in the future, or you just wanna keep the paper copies, that's great. I'm of the opinion that going to this type of a system is what, again, what the private side is doing, and also what other governments are doing as far as document retention electronically. I believe it's a worthwhile effort, and I just kind of wanted to throw it out there to see what you thought.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville?
to building official Schrader, so when you say this initial review that you'd be responsible for doing, what are you thinking as far as cost associated and time?
Thank you, that's a great question, and unfortunately, there's not an exact answer to that. If the council saw fit to allocate maybe $3,000, I will stretch that as far as I possibly can. Personally, I take, there's a certain wage associated with my reviews, but I think we can get somebody in there less expensive once we get a framework established. And that would only stretch those dollars out a lot further. So if you were, saw fit to, advertise for an intern or a part-time or somebody like that, once I get a dozen files done to say, hey, this is what you do when you come across this, and then somebody else could come on and kind of piggyback along with that at a lesser wage, I think that would, and then I would be available for questions. If they come across a file, well, we didn't talk about this, what do you do with, this type of information, I would be available to kind of assist in that as well. And that would take that $3,000 and stretch it further. And that was just a number I picked, thinking that that's a good start. Is that gonna finish the project? Probably not. Is it gonna get a good start? Absolutely.
I have one more question. Do you have any idea of, say, the average file, let's say construction of a house, average house and now then, that was, say, done 10 years ago? Can you guesstimate how long it would take to do that file?
That's a really good question, and you picked 10 years out, and that's just an estimate. And I would say, from a file from 10 years ago, I'm gonna guess 15 to 20 minutes to go through and actually organize the files. Anything older than that's probably gonna take less time because there's less information in there. But I'm just gonna guess 10, 15, 20 minutes, somewhere in that area.
So a simple deck would be a lot less and.
Correct. And unfortunately, some of the folders have 1 or 2 pieces of paper in them, just because the document retention from 15, 20 years ago wasn't very much. The city didn't really request much, and that's what was common at that time.
Okay.
Now, however, we have trust specs, energy calculations, building plans that are the size of this table, and things like that, where Currently, again, we're saving that, or we're getting that information already electronically. So it's not a matter of wrestling with that paper. But, you know, homes that maybe from 3 or 4 years ago are gonna be a little bit more involved, where maybe it's 20 to 30 minutes.
And then also, it depends on how many things are happening with that file. There could have been
Right.
a new home, there could have been a garage, there could have been another accessory building, they could have had a septic system update. You know, the one file could have multiple things.
Exactly, good point. So that folder, so what we do, just to real quickly show you or demonstrate what we're doing, is I could come with a PowerPoint sometime to show you. But into the shared file, it's called the U drive, user's drive. It's the drive on the computer system that Corey and Lori and I all have access to. And under that, we have a properties folder. In that properties folder is an address from every property that we've touched. So within that, there's a septic folder, a building folder, a code enforcement folder, if there was any code enforcement activity at that address. And then within those folders are other categories. A deck from 2017, new construction in 2010, whatever it was. And so those are labeled accordingly. So then the documents that are scanned and saved would be in those respective folders. So I feel real comfortable on our system. It's just a matter of getting a good start on it and then having somebody come help.
You had said, you know, you had established the process and organized the files, and then once you've done that, be able to bring somebody in to sort according to that pattern that you established? Is that what you would?
Correct. We're on the verge, this is maybe more than we need to get into now, but we're on the verge, our company, of bringing on a full-time employee. We've got a part-time person that's interested in coming full-time. Next Monday, we have a vote coming up for the city of Mounds View and also the city of Oak Grove. So as our workload increases, we have a staff member that's interested in coming full-time. So now with the winter coming up, or in the spring when building is slow, I have an administrative person that would be available to come in and help with this. So if you're able to find an intern or somebody locally that's interested in some work, that's great. And if not, I probably have somebody that would be able to help with that as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainville.
And on that, but we also have the ability to have our internal staff trained and to do that as they have time available to
Correct,
do
as
it.
time permits, right. It's not gonna, it's gonna be something that, there's gonna be a fair amount of repetition to it. But right, either way, I'd kinda like to take ownership of it, because I feel like I've got a good handle on what's required to be saved and what's not. Anything that's within question, we would, closely evaluate it. We don't wanna lose any valuable information. But again, ice and water pictures from 6 years ago on a roof that passed, why do we have that? I'm of the opinion that it costs money every time you pick it up. Every time staff has to look at that, it costs money. And I would just as soon get rid of it. I think it's gonna save us time and money in the future, the city.
Just thinking ahead, we have a nice mild winter and we have maintenance staff that doesn't have a full day. We're not graveling, we're not grading, we're not plowing. Is this something that they could help out with as well?
I certainly think so.
Mr. Mayor, I disagree. Now you're talking about them establishing folders and sending that to, you gotta scan it, and where's it getting scanned to? Joe's computer?
No.
And then Joe is going to be processing it and putting it in files?
Well, once this is established, it should be pretty straightforward, but if we don't think that maintenance is capable or interested in doing it, then that's fine. I guess I'm just offering an opinion.
I mean, I don't think that that's a good use of maintenance. I mean, doing office work and doing that kind of stuff, I really don't think that's.
Throwing it out there.
Yeah, because, I mean, they can do filing, but this is a little different ballgame.
Yeah.
I mean, you've read some of Joe's memos. Would you want
I
him
was thinking more
sorting
Eric,
and
but-
establishing files for him?
I was thinking more
Yeah.
Eric.
Yeah.
And
Well, Eric,
if
yeah.
it was down to an intern where somebody was scanning, if they could, I didn't know how close it would be to the equivalent of filing. If once the files are established, now you just take these documents and scan them. I didn't know if that might be something
Well,
Eric could do.
it depends on if the folders are already set up. Like you said, each building file has several different folders under it. So now you take the deck stuff and you scan it, and now you have to find it on your computer where it's scanned, and then you have to take it from there, and then you have to transfer it to the folder a file.
I didn't mean to get us off track, so I would leave that to you, Corey, if this system's going well enough and you think this might be something that somebody else could help with, or
Yeah.
if it
If
makes
it's
sense
beyond,
to.
sorry, yeah, it's folding some newsletters and things like that, they've shown interest or a bit, but, so if this is something that's a little bit more than we want them to get involved in, then I guess, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I just don't.
Yeah, I don't wanna derail it before it even gets started here, so.
Right, and then the other question I have is, the scanner, is there any problems that we would have with our current copy machine scanner because it doesn't do the big?
That's a great point. The state statute as far as document retention, is pretty, specific in its scope. We do not need to save the blueprints on a new single-family home. We only save them now because it's easy and it's sometimes beneficial. The building plans that we have rolled up, we are on a system where we would contact you as a property owner, say, hey, your building plans are here, do you wanna come get them? You can, you know, whatever that's gonna look like, we can do that. But as far as, we don't need to physically scan anything bigger than what we're capable of. So our current copier scanner over there is sufficient. Yep. Surveys, basic property information, we can scan that and that's what we're required to save. Yep.
So, Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rainey.
So a question down the road in regards to that issue, and I was gonna ask about the bigger pieces of paper that we scan. So when we rent our machine, and when we go to upgrade our machine, maybe on the list of new bells and whistles we want on that, if they have the ability to do a larger scan, that would be something we would want, because it would give us the ability to scan something larger.
That could be looked at.
Yeah.
However, remember, the ones that we're currently getting, the designers, the architects, the engineers already have it electronically. It's just a matter of asking for it.
Okay.
So the older ones from the years past, I don't know that
It's worth,
it's
okay.
not, it's worth it.
All right, okay.
Give the owner the ability or the option to come pick it up if they want it. That's theirs, come get it, you can keep it if you want. If not, we'll recycle it. And that'll clean out a lot of physical space that's being utilized for that right now. So that was my opinion on the subject.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
one other question would be, have you looked at the capacity on the server? As far as, are we gonna need a bigger hard drive to store this stuff?
Great question, and that's been addressed. I did ask RB's computer, Chris and Steve that work for the city, and I showed them some documents or some folders as examples, and essentially, as long as we're not saving photos, which we don't need to anyway, they seemed comfortable with us going ahead and doing it and seeing how much room it's gonna take up. They didn't anticipate, excuse me, having regular PDF files be much of a problem, no. It's really hard to anticipate how many gigawatts
Oh, yeah.
you're gonna need, but physically looking at the storage space, the physical number of papers that we have, it did not seem to be a concern. Storage is pretty cheap, I guess.
So you talked about maybe having a PowerPoint. Is it reasonable to have a flow chart as well?
I could develop something like that, sure.
I'm thinking, you know, flow chart said, okay, here's what you would do, here's what somebody else would do, here's what level of competence is needed for that.
Just so we all have an understanding of what that storage system would look like, I could bring together a PowerPoint, sure, in the future. I just, for tonight's meeting and for tonight's purposes, realizing the time constraints and everything else, just wanted to see if council was interested in pursuing that, and then perhaps allocating some money in the budget going forward to get a start on that type of a project. That was the purpose of me bringing it up.
Corey, do you have any other pros or cons that you'd like to bring up?
No, I just wanted to mention what he said about storage is you gotta keep in mind that that's not the only thing getting stored on those servers.
Right.
We got a lot of documents, packets get stored on there every single month, and that's a good 70, 80 pages every month, so, you know, between that and that, we might have to upgrade it depending on what other uses it's for.
Right. And some of the way we store that too can be looked at, you know, as far as the method of storing it into zip files and other things as far as how that actually physically works. I'm learning every day Arby's is really good. I really enjoy the interaction with them. They've been very supportive of this. And again, that's the way things are. That's the way of the future. Actually, having boxes of paper is really not typical for long-term storage any longer. With today's technology, it is, that's just the way it is. And again, the efficiencies that we can realize, somebody wants information, whether it be a septic as-built, or they need something as an email, you know, they call us or email us, and we can send that information really quickly. And again, it's also the quality. The quality of these documents are retained electronically, there it is. You know, whereas paper copies, the ink fades, they get folded over, they get misplaced, then what do you got? That's part of what we're realizing.
Council have anything else for Mr. Schrader while he's here?
Thank you for your time. That's what I really kind of wanted to put out there. Cool. And as always, if you have any questions, just send me an email.
Thank you.
And Corey, have you put anything in the budget regarding this at this point?
No, this was the first that he brought to me. This was a surprise that he was going to bring it up.
I just want to bring it up for discussion. If it's something you want to talk about for next calendar year, that just, not very often we have a sliver of opportunity just to throw it out there. And if it's something with a few $1,000s you want to pursue next year, I figured now is the time to do it. I know we've talked about it one-on-one in the past, right? But it was never on an agenda or anything like that.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much. I think one of the things we could do, Joe may come later, we could have some discussion on some of his items, but looking at what we just got from the financial report by Object Code, here's date 9/18/2017, it might be helpful to look at, you know, a quick run through on where we're three quarters into the year, so we got a quarter left. Taking a look at our receipts and see what it looks like we aren't going to make. Best guess from your experience, Tony. But take a look at the ones we've already exceeded our budget for the year, and we still got a quarter to go. And I guess ask you, Corey, did you make adjustments based on what you've seen here, or the adjustments that you had made your best guess prior to actually analyzing the?
Yeah, they were best guess prior to actually analyzing, because some of these things, like the right-of-way permits, well, we knew why that is over budget. It's because there was a whole bunch of new internet stuff that went through. And it's another one, the farmer's market permit, that's, you know, that's something you can't rely on. The wetland reimbursement, we never can rely on that, there's no guarantee we're ever gonna get that. Zoning and subdivision fees, that's just depending on what comes up from the public as far as what they're planning on doing. What else did we have that we were already over what we budgeted? Ball field rental, well, the reason why is because with the new system, it breaks it out based park and ball field. So honestly, I think we're kind of still right on track with everything. I mean, but it's so hard to judge what's gonna be more or less than what was anticipated. Taxes, that's always a tough one, to know what we're gonna receive, if there's people delinquent on their taxes or not. So, and then sometimes we get a couple years past delinquent taxes that we collect out, but we are also get delinquent taxes, so.
I understand the building permits. Here, looking down here, court fines and administrative fines, from a receipt standpoint, we're 10,700 under. Is that something that we anticipate significant activity in the fourth quarter, or is that?
Well, that's again, the court fines are definitely based off of, how many citations are, when the sheriffs stop them. And the administrative fines, that we don't anticipate any, to be paid this year, so.
Court fines, we're still anticipating in the proposed 2018, 15,000. And we dropped the administrative fines to 2,500. And refunds, we're keeping at 2,500. Park and rec concessions, yeah, we're pretty close on. Tower lease permit, tower lease payments will be coming in. And the planner and the plan check fees and those are activity-based. If we don't have them, we shouldn't be paying out on the other end as well.
Right.
Town hall rental, do you think that,
Well, last year we collected 6,331. And I kind of figured it out based off of having Tony Elfeld out of it. And I think that 5,200 is sufficient.
think it's still achievable?
Yeah, I think so. But we still, I guess we've only collected 1,400, so I don't know. We still got the holiday seasons coming. And the church, so.
How much does the church pay, do you know?
It's 150 per week.
Anything else on the receipts? The interest, we've still got at 1,200. The Federal Reserve's gonna help us out there. We got that new deposit in Community Pride.
Yeah, but that's different. The interest on here is more of the interest earns, although the reason why is because when we cashed out the one CD, we did put the interest in this location, but generally, we don't, in most cases, when we cash out a CD or when we reinvest the whole thing. Because you generally do a transfer, we don't take the money out and then put it in our bank and then take it out again. But that's why, otherwise our interest earnings are only on our checking. And since it's divided out to several different accounts, we get very minimal, like $32 a month for a general fund and interest. It's pathetic.
Mr. Mayor?
Member Ricker. If you look at the, and I know we've talked about this before too, but fire calls paid, we budget $8,500 and to date, we're at $752. You know, that's a big discrepancy there, and I know we've talked about it before, but, you know, I guess in my opinion, I don't think we should really be charging for fire calls unless it's, you know, an illegal burn or, you know, arson or something that obviously, you know, illegal business or, you know, something along that lines. But again, you know, if you look at what we've got to date, you know, we're way off on receipts there. And again, are we, in a sense, somewhat double dipping because people are, you know, paying some of their tax revenue is paying for the fire department budget, but then we also are charging for that service. And if you look at the numbers as of to date, you know, again, there's a huge discrepancy between what we do budget and what we actually receive.
Corey, to Councilmember Rickard's question, do we have any outstanding,
Not that I'm aware of, I'd have to take a look and see, but I'm not aware of anything. There hasn't been a huge amount of calls this year, and some of them, I mean, what did we have, didn't we have a house fire or something big last year? That, you know, there was a couple bigger things, and that's why we had so much come in last year, but yeah, you can't guarantee that.
well, and the chief had said that the majority of your calls are medicals.
Mm-hmm.
So, and those are usually lower rates than, say, sending out the
And
rates for
or car
fires.
accident, if there's more
Yeah.
than one, it's split, and,
Mhm.
you know, yeah, it's just, and then if they're outside of the city, you can't really collect on them. I mean, you can send them a bill,
Yeah,
but
we
it
don't have
doesn't
a
mean that
method
they're
of,
gonna pay and there's no way to assess them. Because you can't assess outside of the community, so,
Go to small claims court.
yeah, I was gonna say,
yeah,
if
but
it-
it's not,
But yeah, what's that cost?
yeah.
We used to do it years ago.
yeah.
Penny used to go down there and just put a judgment against them. Then they typically get the money,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's a cost to that too.
Yeah,
But
It does
you-
seem that, you know, in the older days when somebody would get a claim in the small claims court, or judgment against them, people had a sense of duty, they paid it. Now they just, it seems like everybody just blows it off. There's no enforcement, you're kinda like, if you wanna pay, you pay, but the judge isn't gonna come chase you down typically either. But you have to weigh the cost of somebody representing us in small claims court too, but. Paul, do you see with the new rescue truck that would affect our medical calls as far as cost? Running that out instead of the engine, or is it same number of people and that's basically the cost?
You know, I guess, I don't know if I could answer that directly, but I don't, you know, the way we respond is however many people show up to the station. So you could get on a medical call, technically, if 8 people showed up, you know, we still pay 8 people. So, and the truck holds 5, so it all depends on response. So, but as far as equipment wise, I don't see it being any different.
Mr. Mayor,
That's what I
other than maybe a gas mileage difference between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a question then for Councilmember Rickard. So if I call and my husband's having a heart attack, they dispatch the ambulance, they dispatch the sheriff, and they dispatch the fire department. Do we not have a protocol that says we don't need 8 people to respond to a heart attack and that would be
We're a paid on-call department, so at any time, how do you know who's available?
Okay, so when you get your page, do the firefighters respond to base to say, I'm responding, so that base, probably not the right word, but base knows that 5 are going?
We have a new app that we just got where you can hit respond or unavailable or whatnot, but that's not always used and not,
Well, and the other part of that is you really don't know how big it is. And when you're initially responding, you don't know because the duty officer or sheriff isn't necessarily on site yet.
correct.
And so you don't want to do anything that would discourage people from actually showing up here and say, okay, I showed up and it's a little bitty thing. You're gonna get paid, what's the minute, an hour for showing up?
Yeah,
You're gonna get paid the hour. And, if it's a bigger deal, you want the people here ready to go. I mean, I was thinking of, when I was down in the, Champlin, working down there, and the fire department down there responded to a person had mixed chemicals down the basement trying to clean out a drain, and they dropped. So they figured, okay, go over there, and, something easy, just get him out of the basement. Well, they went over there, the guy was about 400 pounds, and they needed quite a crew. And the first 3 people in, because you couldn't see anything, they dropped also. So they had to go out and gear up and go back in and drag everybody out. If you say, well, it's just one guy dropping down the basement, and you send a small crew, and then you have to re-scramble, I think the idea is get everybody here, and if they sit at the station because you're not needed, they pay an hour.
well, and it's not just that, it's now, we have, for an example, say, go back to your example, you have a heart attack. CPR now is a lot different than it used to be, and we have what they call as a rescue pump, and they've proven that with this rescue pump, that the way it works is it actually retracts the chest more, so it actually brings in more capacity. You do a 2-minute cycle on that, and you're spent, and then you rotate. And if, you have 2 people there, and depending on, where the call is, and if an ambulance crew isn't ready, you want to be able to rotate in and out and not just a couple of people. Because again, like I said, even in training, you do a 2-minute cycle and it takes it out of you.
Okay. Just, it was
Well, I
just a
think
question.
even the AEDs. you-
Well, again, on an average heart attack, you have somebody doing rescue, the rescue pump, somebody doing airway, somebody getting an AED, so that, there's, a minimum of 3 people and then rotating.
Okay.
So it's,
It was a question. It's-
Do we charge on medicals currently?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
so we did drop the fire, I see Corey dropped the fire call number down to 5,200 for next year. So,
On the revenue side, on the receipt side,
yeah,
yeah. Well, let's see. Joe has joined us, thank you for making time.
If you wanna go grab a copy.
Receipts is considered page 1, right? Or page 2.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, if I can just start on one thing in the Road and Bridge Department. At our last budget meeting, it was discussed about Steve and keeping him on in his employment. We did do some checking, and he would not be required to do a para, and nor would he have any penalties, no matter how many hours he worked. So if the council proceed to keep him on permanent part-time, they could do so, and there would be say benefits of those sorts, other than his standard Medicare and all that the city would have to pay. And then because if he stayed under the 32 hours per week too, then he wouldn't be, even though I wouldn't think he would take them, but he wouldn't be bound to the health insurance as well, because you gotta work 32 plus hours, so.
And has he plowed for us before, Joe?
He's plowed once or twice with the one tons.
Would he be somebody you would count on to be one of your plowing crew?
I talked to him today about it, and he would do it.
Would you be interested?
Sure.
What about Jerry? Is he interested in plowing?
He probably is, but I don't know if I want him.
Gravel is one thing that... Do you have your driver set up for this winter
I
yet?
have one driver, so that's why I had talked to Steve about it today. He'd be doing it.
And so who else do you have for, is Dana,
Dana will be driving the one ton.
and then you and Eric on the, would you be doing the grader typically?
Only if it gets really bad, we'll take the grader out.
Otherwise, you guys are in the big trucks?
Yep.
And that's sufficient at this point?
Yep.
So Mr. Williams, you planning on using him this year?
Not unless I really have to. He kinda irritated me last year, so.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate surprise.
Yep.
So at this point, is Steve staying north for the winter, and he'd be willing to be a
Yeah.
permanent part-time, is that what you call it? Permanent part-time?
Yeah, he's buying a house up here, so he ain't going nowhere.
The unemployment that you've, well, let's, so we want to, with Joe here, start with the road and bridge. We're on page 5. Do we have any receipts for road and bridge? Just roll. Right along.
There's of those, and then we have some,
Culverts and
yeah. And that's pretty much it.
where do we show that?
Culverts on the budget portion, or?
Yeah, the budget portion.
Well, because it's all combined now, so the culverts are kind of way down on the, you gotta look at the proposed general fund one, bigger sheets. Not
Yeah,
these
I've-
ones, these are the summary.
Yeah.
So you'll see,
So
right
driveway
away-
permits, mailbox, culverts.
Yeah. And the mailbox, a lot of it has to do with, and the driveway permits, a lot of it has to do with the number of new houses. On occasion, we do get a separate driveway permit or somebody's mailbox, they wanna swing away, so then we sell them. But other than that, it's primarily the new home.
The right of ways are then combined now too.
Yeah, yeah. It's combined on, as far as this goes, but when you pay Shane, then it's kind of, well, we pay him out of
Yeah. From the receipt side, it's combined.
the, yeah,
From the disbursements, it's,
yeah.
All right. So, road and bridge. Insurance went up. Contractual went up $4,000. What's the thought process there? Repair maintenance contractual. Where are we sitting here? So this year we budgeted 10,000, so far we've already spent 15, what did we spend with extra?
The culverts?
Culverts are on here, we budgeted 8,000, we've spent 13.
Getting the trucks fixed.
Yeah, it says under repairs and maintenance, contractual machinery and equipment for 5,200 for this year already.
No, it just, that my report doesn't say exactly what it was for, but we've got Collin Brothers Towing, Ziegler, AB Welding, Melvin Garage, Hydraulic Specialties, Card Member Services, Ziegler, and Blaine Brother Truck Line.
In 2014, our actual was 12,600. 2015, it was 85. 2016, it was 2,000. And we're at 15,000 so far this year. Everybody all right with that one?
So on the comment, it said includes culvert repairs. So that was that to get the extra trailer and, no, because we didn't have to rent the extra trailer. Because you contracted the culverts.
Right. Just to let you know, we're gonna replace, 2 more culverts, well, really 3. On the corner. Get rid of the speed bumps.
Where are they going over?
From, one's in front of the, storage units, and one's right past the storage units.
Similar to what happened down at 185th there?
Pardon?
Similar to what you did down at 185th? The speed bump we had down there?
So this one here's got 24 inch culverts in it. I think the only way we can fix it is take them out. And we'll put 3 12 inch culverts in this place, so we get them covered over. Right now, there's only 4 inches of cover, and they're heaving up so bad you can't. It's getting bad.
else in the, Home Bridge?
So, Mr. Mayor, did we still have to include the unemployment for next year?
Well, Mr. Mayor, you might wanna consider still having something there, because even though we might have Steve stay on, if we do decide to hire another seasonal kid that mows or something, then we always want to see if they can apply for unemployment.
Or Jerry?
Yeah, so, I mean, does it have to be that much? Probably not, but we need to take that into consideration.
Corey? Beck, when we were talking about that, were we also not asking if college students receive
Yeah, there's-
unemployment and,
There was something in regards to that, but, and I don't know if it's up to them to. Because remember, when we tried to dispute, the one young gentleman, and he was a college student,
but
and
did,
they wouldn't let us dispute him.
but was that part of our case, or was it just that?
Well, it was part of it as far as that he was a seasonal and that he was a student, but, oh, this is where, non-covered employment includes employment by most churches as a sheltered worker in a government work relief or student employment work study.
And being it's not a work study,
Yeah. Or academic and hospital internships, so nothing else really applied
Okay.
to that.
those rules have changed quite a bit over the years. Those rules have changed quite a bit over the years.
Yeah. What does it take to make it a work study?
Maybe if he's a horticulture.
Yeah, student.
University of now then?
I have a question for Joe. Actually, I have two questions. One was when we first met, and of course I can't find it on here, but motor fuels. And in the past, we had gone out and done the pre-buy. And you were gonna check as to where we were in the time frame of doing that again.
As long as the fuel stays down the way it is, it's not really worth it. As long as it stays at $2.50 or below. Just when you get to the $4 ones where it really hurts.
Is the process, is it a yearly calendar that they look at? Is it?
Only 3 or 4 months.
Okay,
Because right now we're getting into the winter blend, and you can't pre-buy that.
okay.
How do we sit for fuel right now? Your tank's full?
No. No, we wanna get them down pretty low so we can switch them over to winter blend next month.
How about sand and salt?
I'm getting prices on 100 tons of salt. Haven't got prices back yet.
And sand? On the
Sand.
gravel roads, you pretty much just use the sand, right?
Pardon?
Gravel roads, you pretty much just use sand?
Yeah. Sand we get year round, so. Our barn's not big enough to hold enough for a winter.
The professional services, we go over by 1,600. Do you know what that was, Cory?
That's where we paid Paris for the culverts. There was that, and then, well, the Ray Hennepin Electric, but that shouldn't have been in there. That was only $27.
So we paid 13,000 on culverts. Oh, that was for the work they did on Jarvis.
Yeah, whatever, there were several different culverts that Paris replaced, and I don't remember where they were all at. But that's which fund we paid him on.
And that's gonna go up with these three? Are they gonna work in that, or are you gonna do these, Joe? Like,
We'll contract it out. We're getting prices now.
so that'll go up?
Yeah.
On the the snow removal, ice and snow, what is gravel and rock for ice and snow removal? The budget of 9,000, we've spent 3,400.
That should be still the same as salt sand because there's no, I don't think that there is I don't think they've had
Specific line item.
a line item under the new program for salt and snow.
Gravel, rock,
Okay.
must be the-
I'm gonna say, why are we graveling roads in snow budget? So it's salt and sand.
Yeah,
You're ordering salt.
It's really big sand we're getting this year. To get good traction, you won't get some of that railroad rock out there.
one of the other things, and I know me and Joe had talked about in the park department, is one of the mowers is in need of some major repairs.
Is that the Toro?
Yeah.
So, that's gonna be another large expense, I believe.
Is there, let me ask this, is it worth repairing or is it time to be replacing? How soon are we gonna have to replace?
Pardon?
So if you repair it right now, is it good for another season or two, or?
No, it lasts longer than that. It is starting to smoke quite a bit. So I don't know if the rings are going bad in it or just the injectors. We have it taken it in.
Is this a repair that you're capable of doing, or is this gotta be?
No, gotta take it in. I don't know if get the injectors pulled and checked, see what's wrong. See if the rings are, I don't think the rings are bad, I think the injectors are. If that's the only thing, it's not so bad.
Where would you take it?
Take the Crawfords or down Lanos, one or the other.
How major is major? A couple $1,000 or?
I have no idea.
Because there's still, well, operating supplies left for parks, I don't know.
Well, I need a new flywheel put in it for one. Going to Toro or MTI, flywheel itself is $2,300.
Okay.
What I wanna do, is once they pull the engine out of it, rotate the flywheel a quarter of a turn, put it back together. To me, it should last another 20 years. They won't do it, a dealer won't do it, but when you get the engine out, I just go over and pull 4 bolts and rotate it, one set of holes.
Joe, under repair and maintenance supplies landscaping, we're $2,000 over.
Wood chips?
Yeah.
how often are we replacing the wood chips? Is that every year?
as needed,
As needed, so every,
you know,
Yeah, where do we sit on Morton? Is there still a chain on there? Did you take that off?
took it off.
Are you able to get in there and,
Right?
have you been in there chipping in there at all, or?
No.
Still
I won't go
wet?
back there until it's freezes up a little bit.
Still pretty wet back there?
Yeah, I'm in the dog, went for a walk back there this evening, and trail getting back there is still too soft for chipper and stuff.
Going back up to the road and bridge, the signs and mailboxes, we put in 5,500, we've only used 102. And
We just ordered, we just got a pallet full of mailbox posts in.
any idea what you haven't seen them?
I haven't seen
Bill
the
yet?
invoice yet.
Do we anticipate any major sign? You know, we had the mandate a few years back, and then we dropped that. Do we anticipate any sign updates?
Yep, there is quite a few signs out there I gotta get changed. I know Old Vikings, one of them, getting hard to read. There's one on 66 that's getting hard to read.
Is this along with the, so you won't, with the pallet of posts that you just got in, we shouldn't need a major supply of those for next year?
Hope not.
So the $5,000 or $5,500 here would be primarily for signs then? $5,500? And that should be sufficient for the signs that you're needing to replace?
I would believe so, yes.
Joe, the one thing we talked about briefly when we chatted was that pretty much if you're buying tools, that they're used at the shop and the park.
If I'm working down the park, I usually take what I need down there. Guys are down there, they got a little set of tools.
Right, we were just wondering if we needed to budget for separate park tools, if we're already including them in the regular road and bridge.
If I or Eric take them down to the park, we know we bring them back. We got part-time guys working on the park, sometimes they don't come back, so I like to have their Japanese tools stay down there, have their own down there.
Okay.
The utilities were over already, is that something that's, do we adjust for that?
So the utilities are where?
In the park utilities, we've got, the electric is, we're about even. We budgeted 500 and we're at 410. Refuse disposal, we budgeted 1,000, we're at 16. And repairs and maintenance contractual machinery at 26, and we budgeted 2,000. So garbage pickup, we're 627 over, and we got 3 months to go.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things you just kind of just guess where most garbage is coming from. Just put it in that department. You know, I mean,
So when we empty that stuff, does it come up to these dumpsters up here then?
Yep. So that's why it's kind of hard to determine exactly how much of it is really park related or not. And since the parks are slowing down, then less money's gonna be, would be considered for it. But if you wanted to, you could switch it out and take it out of the parks and put it all under the general fund, and then you don't have a split. Now, the electric is a little different, because we do get a separate bill altogether for the electricity over at the park. So it's kind of nice to be able to monitor that as far as how much electricity we're using over there. And
Well, I know last year we talked about, we took some of this out of recycling and put it in the park.
yeah, see, recycling, they're kind of funny about that. It's like, oh, how is it there's this much garbage? But they don't realize that when we get all this stuff that's dumped off there, and if it gets put in the dumpsters.
I would say every time I go close the doors, there's a pile of garbage right inside
Yeah,
that door.
so there's a lot of garbage that's created by that.
I would
recycling
say
center.
that, you know, I don't know how much you're actually getting out of the parks, out of those cans there,
Mhm.
but what gets dumped in the recycling is some big stuff. I mean, right now, we don't do the wet pack cardboard, so that gets thrown out. There's a lot of plastics that get thrown out. I would say we probably, volume-wise, have as much or more coming out of recycling than we do out of the parks. Is that a fair statement, Joe, or you guys dump the cans?
Probably, yeah.
And on our recycling, how much do we have for garbage?
Just like today at the recycling center, we picked up, one mattress, 3 couches, and 1 recliner.
6,000 is what we budgeted for it. So, but no, yeah, that was 6,000, and then what we paid is. It's 4,400 so far.
All right, I'll keep that for now then. Anything else on the parks? I have a question on the capital improvement plan for next year. We're struggling to get through this year's, but next year's we've got 45,000 for a pup trailer.
I don't think that's in this part of it. We got a totally different packet for at one time.
Oh, that's the place.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at it and misplaced it.
Yeah, it's 45,000 for the pup trailer. We were talking about getting another one. I don't remember, we talked a little bit about it.
Maybe, I haven't priced them.
Yeah.
I haven't priced the one I like to get.
Is that something that you still see as necessary for next year?
It'd be nice, yeah. If we get the one I want. If we can find the one I want. That's the biggest thing.
Have you seen anything that says that's a reasonable price range, 45,000?
I honestly haven't paid attention. I think the couple that I did find that was in the ballpark. The trailers I'm looking at, I'd like to have, there are many more Montana, western North Dakota. That's where you'll find them. You don't find them around here. I want a belly dump pup trailer. Nobody's ever even seen one around here before.
And the trailer we have right now is,
It's just like a dump truck, it raises up.
would you keep that one and add
If
this to
I
your
can
fleet?
find one like I want, yeah, I would keep that one, just run the pups on both of them, both trucks. And use the one to underneath the electric wires with. Be a lot easier. A lot faster.
Well, we need to, get that in order so we don't run into the problem we're having with the loader, so. Get you looking earlier in the year and
I found one out in Nevada, but Eric wouldn't pull it back because it's tall.
there it is. Didn't take it on my briefcase yet. And right now you've got nothing in 2019, at least on the. Do we have a capital improvement that's more than February 2016?
Say that again?
The capital improvement I'm working off here is February of last year. Do we have anything more current than that?
I don't remember.
The one I have, it started in 2016, yeah.
Okay, so then it goes all the way to 20.
And so we haven't updated this since February of last year. Right now, this shows nothing, so it's 45,000 for the pup trailer, triaxle pup trailer in 2018, nothing in 2019, and then replace the Ford 1-ton with the plow in
The
2020.
way I got it set up, like 1 year is nothing. Following year is pretty light to build up the fund to replace the dump truck.
Right now,
That
you've
red
got
dump
the,
truck is 17 years old.
so
The way it's set up is build up the fund to replace that.
which is the truck we got last year?
Ford 550.
So this one has, at least on the capital improvement plan I'm looking at here, the 2008 Ford 1-ton with a plow would be replaced in 2020 at $100,000.
It's that, just like the what the part up on the car. It's that red Ford pickup.
Yep. And then 2021 and 2022, we had nothing, and then replaced the 2000 Sterling tandem dump truck with a plow for $225.
Yep.
That's the one you're looking at replacing?
So I don't think we're gonna be able to afford it. If we
And
go by
that's the
that,
red
we
one.
build up the funds to replace it.
Yep. And so that's the red one, and the blue one's a Sterling too, isn't it?
Right, it's no 7.
Is that, understanding that you're allowing us to build up funds, is this still sufficient to keep you operating
Yes,
as submitted here?
yes.
Okay. All right, anything else for Joe? Joe, anything else for us that we should be aware of?
I did, I just wanted to know about them culverts that we're gonna have to get replaced.
Anything else that you're thinking for next year?
Culvert?
Well, road and bridge or park expenses that, you've reviewed this budget. You're happy with the numbers that you and Corey put in here?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
The dust control, how do you determine which roads get dust control?
Usually by the high-speed racetracks. How fast and how much traffic's on them. Most of them are racetracks that we spray.
And if you're doing graveling, those don't get it that year?
Yeah, if we're gonna grab them, we don't spray them.
And then if they're gravel this year,
Unless we get done early enough before we spray, then we went ahead and sprayed them.
I got a question the other day, just as a side thing, but 205th and 207th was dust control last year, but not this year. You're done with all dust control this year, right?
Right. Now we're in the process of burying it, getting rid of it.
Doing what now?
We'll grade it deep now to cover it up. So in the wintertime, it doesn't collect so much moisture and make it ice.
So did you do 205th and 207th this year? So if it's done one year, do you typically do it each year?
The reason I didn't do that one, because last year or year before, we did spray it, and they wanted me to grade it every week. So it wasn't no sense of wasting money spraying it if they want to grade it every week. That's the way I look at it.
But otherwise, if a road is dust controlled, typically they get it again.
Yeah, if it's high-speed road, yeah.
And so from the discussion we had earlier with the crack seal, and I know you and Shane were out looking at roads and stuff. With the numbers we have in here for crack seal and the intention of not assuming that half the city's gonna get done every year, but actually looking at where we need it and trying to target our crack sealing. Are you okay with the budget numbers there for crack sealing as well? Council, all right with that as well?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Bettinger.
I got something I think we should be doing. In the park area, we don't have a capital improvement plan for our park equipment. We were just talking about a mower that's gonna need replacement, and we probably should have a CIP fund for our park equipment. And that one pickup actually, that red Ford that's in the road bridge, that's actually a park truck.
Yeah.
And that should be moved over to the park.
The other one.
Yeah.
This one here, we just talking about the Ford 110?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
What about, we're talking about mowers and trucks and major equipment. What about anything else in the parks as far as, right now, if we're going to put in new playground equipment or anything new there, we just take it out of the capital fund that's there. So if it's actually gonna be in the park, we use the capital fund that exists, that we get our park and trail fees from. But as equipment, we don't really have anything established at this point.
New equipment you can take out of that same fund, but we should probably be budgeting something for it.
Yeah, I think that, the intention of, or the people's assumption is that if you're giving park and trail fees, it's probably not going to equipment, but you gotta maintain those too. How are the other mowers working?
Good.
So we got the grasshopper and we got the,
Grasshopper stays down at the ball field. We just bring up to the shop and go over it once or twice a year. The X-Mart, nothing major's gone on with it yet. The big mower's runs good, sounds good. I just noticed it's starting to smoke quite a bit. So I don't know if it's the injectors are bad in it, which That's all, the only thing wrong with it. It won't take that much to fix it.
What to replace that, that's 80,000 plus?
Yep, to replace the mower with the same size, you're talking 60 to 80,000.
But can the motor on that be replaced rather than just the whole mower though?
Oh, right, that's the reason I bought the mower, because of the motor. It's a good motor. No, I don't think you have to replace it, if anything, I want to rebuild it.
Yeah.
And just quickly, your skid loader is out to 2024. Is that gonna hang in there that long?
Knock on wood.
With the other loader, will that ease some of the burden on the skid loader?
It take off quite a bit off of it. Take a lot off of that machine.
All right, so, capital improvement for, park equipment? Is that something that, maybe Lori could help Joe
I
with?
thought I did put something together one time on that, but I don't know who I gave it to.
'Cause I would think, there's probably should be a category in there. We have minor tools and equipment and repair. But if there's any major tools, we should be considering that too.
Mr. Mayor, did you want, like, how we have the other equipment funds, did you want one set up? Not saying that you had to put any money into it, or you have to change the budget to do it, but do you want a plan created for park equipment fund?
I think it makes sense, because then you can see it, it's dedicated, and you can see what's there.
Okay,
So otherwise, we're gonna put a capital improvement plan together, but then we're gonna have to fund it.
right,
And if we have planned expenditures, we can start feeding that fund, that capital improvement fund, and lock that money in place for its intended expenditure in the coming years.
okay, so we can create the fund, but you don't have any plan at this point in time to put any money or dedicate?
Because we don't have any plan to put anything in there yet, yeah. So
Okay.
we don't know what that would be,
Okay.
but I think it's something we could probably talk about at the end of the year too, as we look at dispersing any excess at the end of the year, we could talk about seeding some of that in there.
Yeah.
But if we can get Joe and you and Lori looking at what might go in there for this next year, we can, at the end of the year, start putting some money into it. If the council agrees, I think we should have a capital account for that.
And just give you an idea, we talked to MTI about rebuilding that motor on that mower. They wanted 10,000. I'm not gonna take it to them, but that's, to me, it's way out of line, but I can give you an idea of what MTI is talking.
But you were talking about, the flywheels, that's something you would do when they had the engine out?
Yep.
Rotate the flywheel?
If any dealers that just wanna replace it, I don't see any reason to replace it.
And so if you were to take it to a dealer, Crawford's or whoever, and say, you think it's the injectors, can you limit it to that? They pull it out and,
Yeah, I can tell them, pull the injectors, just the injectors.
we don't just say, fix it and come up with something like MTI did.
No. I'm just telling them.
Is it sufficient to get through the season, or is this something you're gonna have to
No,
do?
I'll finish the season with it. That's why it runs good, sounds good.
So this is a winter project.
Yep.
All right, anything else on road and bridge, park? Budgets, capital equipment?
I do have a question. Joe, and I don't know if you've seen the finished product from what Andy gave us, as far as the buildings and such. Okay. One of the items, some of the items in there are the shelters and some painting. And I'm just wondering Do we have any idea of when the last time we've done any, say, routine maintenance to any of those buildings?
Couple years ago.
And what was done on them?
They were just a painting, had a bunch of paint, somebody spray painted inside the walls, painted.
So that was more just a reactive,
Yeah.
okay.
And, big pavilion, we replaced a bunch of boards on that last year, and stained them, painted them, whatever they did to them.
Thank you.
Andy had talked about supporting those structures for wind. Question came up is, could either painting or staining be done yet this year? The Park Pavilion racking. You mentioned that, and just quick looking through that, he was talking about wind shear. Is that where the racking would assist, would aid us in the wind shear?
Yeah, it would probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think, wasn't he talking about some of these metal ones were rattling some or? something?
Well, that's what, you know,
Maybe
it doesn't really
some
say here,
transpiration.
he says in, like, Twin Lakes Woodland Shelter, there's no page number here, but kind of covers all of that, he says, I was able to cause the roof system to move significantly simply by pushing it on the ground level by hand. State building code requires all structures to be designed and constructed to meet 90-mile wind load. Fortunately, these structures are located in an area where they're sheltered by the wind, the wooded areas, and not subject to straight line winds, but he was talking about the movement that he could see by hand, and that there would be racking, that would help in that. Is that something you would know how to do, Joe, or is that something we've got to get somebody else to properly secure that roof so we have it?
Only bad thing about that, if you start putting cross bracing on it, and some kid takes off running across there and hangs herself, then what?
Yeah, I don't know what the racking would look like.
Go from corner to corner, exit. On at least two sides.
I have a hard time believing too that the county had a structure built in a public park that wasn't the code. That kinda how Randy's comment was there, but.
And they worry about that chain we had on the gate down there. You start putting turnbuckles on this from corner to corner. I don't know what the liability of that.
Let's worry about the paint for now, and we'll dig through this, we can ask further questions when we.
Wouldn't it, as far as the building code, it depends, I mean, what was building code back then too?
Well, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
but he states it does not appear that they were designed to meet several parameters of the applicable building codes in place at that time. Again, I have a hard time thinking that the county would allow a structure in their own public park that did not meet
Oh,
code.
okay, I missed that. Okay.
But if the weather holds, is painting something can be done yet this year?
You know, find some dry days, it's not too much to do.
Pavings, paint, and primer.
All right, anything else for Joe?
So the road and bridge equipment fund, you figure that $50,000, if we keep putting that in, that's enough per year to.
No, I think I had it budgeted for higher than that. My capital improvement.
So the capital improvement that we've got here, 50,000 would cover approximately the triaxle pup trailer for the coming year. Then you went 2 years to cover the 1 ton. 2019 and 2020, that'd be 50,000 a year, and then you had 3 years at 50,000. It's not quite enough to cover the replacement of the Sterling. That's 225, that only gets you 150.
That's why I thought I had it figured out to put more money in it. I think how I figured it was 50,000 like we got now. Once the grader's paid off, that 35,000 was on top of the 50. So the 85,000 going in.
So the grader's paid off. You know that, Corey?
Yeah. Oh, wait, 2011, or the bond is, says page 2, greater bond, pay off 8/1/2021. Yeah. Looks like after 2022, we can have a party. Paid off.
But I believe that's how I had it figured, the 50,000 in there plus the 35 once we get the grader paid off. Had to go on top of that.
Where was it on?
It's on the
Summary,
summary.
page 2, summary top.
So in that case, paying the grader off and keeping the grader in good condition, we would be on track.
But the truck replacement's what, in 4 years? The grader isn't paid off, it's 4 years, so the money won't be there.
If it's paid off in 21, you would have 22 and 23 of the greater payment.
And 21, 22, and 23 of the 50,000. What was the grader payment?
30,000?
That was 35.
Couldn't quite get us to 225. That's 150 and 60, 70.
210.
I mean, that's one of those, we can take a look at the end of the year funds and seed it. I know, up till 2020, we've got the 50,000 covers it. And you have to look at the greater payoff and whatever additional we'd have to have. So I'm guessing by the time we get around to that Sterling, that 225 may be conservative. I don't see truck prices going down significantly.
No.
All right, anything else on,
How about the road improvement fund? So I see we got 167,489 in there. So 67,000, that's the grant money?
yeah,
Yeah. The grant and, yeah, the small cities, and then it's also the LGA. So it's both of them together.
think that's gonna need to be higher. I think we should up that some every year till we get it to where it needs to be.
Well, if we seeded the capital fund, or looked at seeding the general capital fund, and took that out of the budget, that could be moved somewhere else. Cause that's 15,000.
Which one are you talking about?
We had the regular 15,000 capital improvement, just for general repairs. That we added into the budget for $15,000. On the last page, page 8. For general capital projects, you could theoretically see that fund as well, or look into it in December, and then move that 15,000 somewhere else.
Yeah, but we just talked about needing that to fund this.
We could still seed it. I don't know where we are budget-wise, or from the checking account wise at right now. We could still be putting some money into it, just not from the, I'm probably not gonna say this
Levy?
right. What?
Don't levy for it?
Don't levy for it, right. I know Corey and I talked a little bit about, it's a matter of how much play is there to be comfortable, but that could be a way to seed that.
Well, wasn't the whole point of creating that line item to have some funds if something comes up like the furnace and AC here?
Yeah, and we'd still put that in, we'd still have that money in there, it would be seeded, so there would be money in that
You're
account at the end of the year.
saying, take a look at unspent funds
Yes.
into that account,
Mhm.
rather than budgeting for it.
Right.
I think any unspent funds ought to go to our road improvement fund. We're trying to get some projects going here, Old Viking, Rogers Lake area.
Corey,
We should be feeding that.
Corey, did you say on the grant there, that we put in road improvement, the 67, that includes the LGA?
Yeah,
That's the small cities and the LGA.
yeah, because if you look on the very first page, it shows how much the LGA and what the small cities is. That includes-
27 and 39.
Yeah, that small cities didn't come in nearly, they had said last time we got about 64,000 and they expected it to double. Is that small cities, is that total for the year? Or is that two payments of 39?
No,
That's-
that's the total for the year, so it was two payments of half of that, because I wouldn't put it as a line item like that if it wasn't for the full year.
But I think we should up that 32,511, whatever, so we have a total of $200,000 in our road improvement fund. Last year we raised it 50, so.
Yeah, the problem is, or has been, is up until 2016, we were putting $30,000 a year in there when our city engineer had projected in his road study that it should be annually $250,000 to just maintain our roads.
Yeah.
So from 250 to 30, we're way off the mark. So again, if we don't do anything or don't keep looking at increasing it in some fashion, we're just gonna keep falling short every single year. And then, as we all know, costs are just gonna keep going up, so his guesstimate at 250 a year to maintain the roads is gonna continue to increase.
Definitely. The price of oil continues to go up, but that price is gonna go way up.
And I'm not saying we can't put more money into that fund, I'm saying we can also look at our unspent funds to put money in there. And using our unspent funds, especially for last year when we're at well over $150,000 for not just the roads, but also our general capital improvements that need to be made. And whatever's in the checking account now. Coming up with that, what are we comfortable at, and then look at where do we need to allocate the unspent, or that surplus, if you wanna call it that.
Okay, what happens in that scenario, all of a sudden which will never happen, but all of a sudden you hit budget on every item and you have no surplus.
And I'm not saying we're spending all of it, I'm saying we need to come up with what's comfortable. What's the right number to have that we've factored in enough of a, call it a safety factor, if you will.
So I guess what's the difference in doing that, or trying to budget your items and try to get them as close as you physically can, and then just add a lump sum into your road and bridge improvement fund? Instead of waiting until the end of the year to see what you actually got to put in there.
I'm not saying we do that at the end of 2018, I'm saying we can do that now with what's in, with what we have, is because there's current unspent funds from even last year in both the general and the road and bridge accounts.
Well, I understand that, but we still have to figure out how to get more funds in there every year going forward, not just this year or next.
Well, let's take a look. You know, last year we transferred 100,000 into the road improvement fund. And so currently we're at about 189,000 in that fund. All right. Randy had suggested adding another 32.5 to the proposed for this year, taking into account the LGA and the small cities grant. Adding another 32 and making it an even 200 this year, which would put us up close to 400,000 in that fund, which actually now we can start doing something. But if we were to do that, keep the 15,000 in the general capital projects at this point. Let's see where our numbers turn out. Let's see how big a bite we're taking, and then come back and see if we need to tweak it. But let's see if we do this right now, aggressively go after road improvement, and we put something in for capital repair. And if we want to then come back and say, well, let's try and feed this out of any excess from this year rather than levy for it, we can have that discussion. But let's see where the numbers put us first. That makes sense.
So put it at 200.
It'd be an additional 32,511. 32,511 for the road improvement.
Mhm.
And at this point, keep the general capital contribution at 15,000 to see what it does. And then we're gonna take a look at something excess. If we're pushing a levy so high this year, maybe we do wanna take a look at excess funds this year to seed that capital fund. But let's see where the numbers are first. If we can do that. Corey, did you get a chance when you printed the financial report by object code? Did you get a chance to look through and see if there's anything else that scares you as far as this year? You wanna see what, I'm sorry?
No, but if you wanna know the numbers, it
Okay.
comes to 1,473,296.
If you up to 200.
One more time?
1,473,296. And I don't know what that increase is.
It's 112,
No, percentage wise.
yeah, I'm just saying 112,000, so it's gonna be a big percentage. Last year we went up by 10,000, we increased 5.8%.
So sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine.
Was there anything that, the only thing that I kind of increased was our repair and contractual, just given that we had a couple contracts that were increased.
Do you have any concerns looking at it? As far as finishing out the year here, do you think we're gonna be okay?
We'll probably go over a little bit there, but I don't see it any big deal. I think we're still, in the general fund, I think we'll be okay as far as, being under budget. I don't see any major anticipated expenditures.
Figuring that right, it's about an 8.22% increase.
Okay, I'll double check. Let me look at that too.
I'm good on
Corey, were we looking at more than computers for next year?
Yeah, that was increased too. I didn't know. Yeah, because we were looking at updating our, windows. And we always wanna keep money in our computers.
Well, I'm just looking at, we haven't had any expenses this year for that,
That doesn't mean that we won't at the end of the year.
right? I'm just looking at, we haven't expended this year that, and if you even bought a brand new computer, you could have Windows on it for $1,000. And that's a pretty good computer for $1,000.
Well, what are we running for operating system now? Are we?
Yeah, I think so, I don't know.
No.
No, 7, Windows 7. It's going to 10, isn't
It would
it?
be-
Yeah, 7's
10's
not
in
gonna be supported.
permanent.
Well, that's what I'm
anymore.
asking,
Yeah.
you know, when are, you know, if we're all running 7 now, we gotta upgrade. That's the point.
Yeah, and that was what Randy had mentioned, that I think was the end of 2018 or something.
The other thing to look at is we had the presentation from the contractor that would like to go with us for the assessing service. We need to make a decision on that, because that would, if we were to go with this other company, that would be, I think they said $4,000 less.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the county assessor was unable to attend tonight because they already had a prior engagement at Pam Lake. So I was planning on bringing them in on October at our workshop,
Okay.
so. The other thing to keep in mind is it is a proposed budget. It's never set in stone. You can see where it goes as far as, when people start doing their statements and stuff, and they always need to know what's proposed.
Right.
We're just toying with some of the ideas. We're still looking at some options like, possibly, contracting services for the assessors and weighing in on the road improvement funds and stuff. And that way you get a sense of what people really feel about the increase. And it might not be as big of an outcry as you might think. And then you can kind of decide between now and December how you wanna maybe do some more tweaking, look at some more numbers, get a few more, reports.
2 more months in and.
Yeah, just to get an idea of where we're at, financially, and then maybe if it looks like come December, before we have our big meeting to finalize it, if it looks like we do have quite a bit of excess to transfer before the end of the year, then you could be looking at maybe some of these areas you wouldn't need to increase as much, just some options.
I have a question on, I'm just looking at it here, under the fire department, the county records management system where they're hiring the employee. Do we know how that amount was determined? I know I just have the chief's email here that he sent out. Do we know if it was based on percentage? That,
Do you happen to know?
Yeah, there is a formula
okay,
that they have set up for all the cities, similar to what
okay.
we do with the watershed. So there's a formula that's set up. The problem is the cost for that communication system just keeps going through the roof. The frustration is when they came and presented it the first time, what it looks like now isn't anything like that. And they've gone through a couple of different providers, that the people that originally sold it to them couldn't support it in the way that it needed to be supported. And so then had to bring somebody else in that had to get up to speed. And they're finding out because of data practices, and there's a variety of things, what they originally thought could communicate directly. If you remember, maybe you weren't on the council, when they first came out and sold this to us, they were going to be able to pull up to a scene and any emergency responder would have the same information. And so if you were coming up to a scene and you knew that the police had multiple calls to this house or this property, and you were the firefighter responding or an emergency, an ambulance or whatever, you would have the same information that the police might have, saying this is a dangerous situation you're going into. If there were fire records, the police would have that going in. So everybody was going to have this common base. But because of data practices, they realized that can't be.
Because they're different agencies.
And so the administration of this became more cumbersome, because now instead of having one administrator feeding information to everybody, now they have to make sure that they don't send out information to all the firefighters of something that's protected information. So now they have to learn how to limit that. Well, that was one headache they didn't anticipate. The other one was just the administration of it overall. Anybody who's installed an IT system, the salesman comes in and tells you this, and then the installers come in and say, now here's the reality. And I remember we did one at work at one of my previous companies, and they came in at, forget how many tens of thousands over budget, and they threw a party for all the people that were working on it. Because you kept it down to, under $100,000 over plan. So that I think has caused a problem. So they do now have, full-time administrator, and it's continued to go up. But they do use a formula, so
Yeah,
everybody's going up proportionately.
Okay, that was, I wondered if it was a proportionate like Upper Water.
We
or
just
did
can't
do
get
a
them to say
split
where does it
between-
stop.
Yeah, well,
And
they
so
can't tell you.
the next budget vote is going to be in October here for the next year's budgets. Actually, it's for 2019. So. But yes, it is proportional. and it is on a schedule, but it just keeps getting more expensive.
All right, thank you.
And it's a challenge because when you go to the meetings, you've got the professionals there that deal with this all the time. And say, what else can you do? And it becomes a bit of a row because all the elected officials are saying, there's a lot you can do, figure it out. But then you leave the room and all the professionals get together.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Bettinger.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Corey a question. Is there enough money in the budget to give to employees a cost of, or whether it's cost of living or merit, a raise, like say 3%? You guys only had a raise once in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and as far as I recall, there should be, enough in there to cover that. And that would include having Steve on as a permanent part-time and in our department, because, yeah, that would be another thing coming up, is Lori will have been here for a year now, and whether or not there's any anticipation of a raise for her either. If you look at other communities, similar size and that, I mean, the deputy clerk is getting paid well more than what she's at, so. But yes.
What's this one page, what is this, page 8? Property cleanup fund, what's that?
That's old, and we had a property that we had to clean up, and there was some costs associated with it. So there's no money going into it.
No, I just seen it on there, I just asked a question.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, it's just the old fund that we had to pay. Do you remember the property next door to Lori Ullman?
Oh, yeah.
That's the property we had to clean up. And
I
it
just
took
seen it on there. I
several
wouldn't-
years, but she did pay it on back taxes.
All right, we have to have this turned into the county no later than the 29th, which is a week from this coming Friday. Anything else that,
For the civil attorney, I was just curious how we came up with the 15,000. Because you had the average of 600 per month. No, you actually, increased them by 5,000.
Oh, that's probably based off of.
Yeah, you split them up, I see that, but
Yeah.
if we went by the average, 2,000 a month is 24-ish,
Yeah,
600 a month is 7,200-ish.
And it depends, I mean, it depends on how much you use them per year. So, best case scenario, this is what I came up with. I mean, it's really hard to determine how much services we're gonna use of Bob Ruby, and he'd be the civil attorney,
Mm-hmm.
so. I just best guessed it.
Okay.
So the legal notices publishing and the ordinance publication, does that take into account that we're paying for those this year, paying somebody?
Well, that's what, you guys never gave me an idea of what to do with those. As we talked about at the last meeting, is that we do have some expenditures there, especially when it comes to, pet clinic and all that kind of stuff. But we haven't heard any word from either one of the papers as far as what they're gonna charge, if any, for this year.
Well, assuming, if I got them all right, assuming we had 17 notices, and if we paid the $9.75 an inch, that would be $27.44.63. And you were saying this year was a typical year when we talked about it briefly before, or so.
Yeah, but when you're saying typical year of what, I mean, because we had, and I wouldn't say this atypical, because we had a lot of public hearings this year. So if we weren't using the record, or if there was a different price associated, we did have a lot of public hearings, notices that went out, but that we didn't have to pay for.
Right.
So,
We had 12 public hearings that were posted, and 7 government notices. I didn't know how that got split out for legal notices versus ordinance, however that worked out.
I don't know if that's mine or yours.
That was yours.
People know that I'm at meetings.
So I don't know what else, however many more would be taking place this year.
I don't know either.
Right.
Yeah, I can't to say.
And I think the record was saying it was like $30 or $35 per notice next year.
I don't think he ever gave us a cost.
No.
Oh, he said this,
I'm going off of what he said that other cities were paying.
well, again, that's what I'm saying. He's
Okay.
never specified to us what he was gonna charge us.
So the cheapest announcement that we had was $68.25. The most expensive one was, based on the union of $9.75, the most expensive one would have been $833.63.
So do we wanna set a date for our meeting and approve it before the 29th?
Next Monday look for people. 25th? Still got a phone working there, Paul?
Mm-hmm.
Is this one waterproof?
I know. The other one didn't get wet. It just, they figure it was probably a bad charger.
Oh,
Fried it.
I thought the one before that was wet.
Well, yeah, the one before that I went water skiing with, but. Yeah, it actually fried my wife's at the same time, so both of them. So.
Monday the 25th work for people?
If I may, what's left?
We need to get the numbers.
We gotta approve the
Just,
budget.
I know we have to improve the budget, is it just giving Corey time to put them in?
Put them in and then figure out what the number's gonna be. And if that chokes anybody, get some feedback.
Yeah, cause I mean, I already put the number in, you only made one change, basically.
Yeah,
So I'll print you a new page or new pages, and I'll put on the bottom, the 5th draft and the new date, so you have
And the
it.
increase.
Here's a question for you guys, I hate this legal size. Do you mind if I remove the 2014 budget and actual then for a final proposed budget?
I actually printed out, it reads a little smaller, but I print out.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Rather than, I just print out what you got on you got by 11.
Okay, well then, you can do that.
It's-
or I
it's
can
legible
do it.
enough.
Yeah.
we're not that old yet.
What
We
time?
can't read it.
We should be able to, 7, get her done.
So this will actually call a budget meeting or special city council meeting? Which one would you prefer?
Budget,
special.
budget approval meeting?
Okay.
And do you want some numbers for the park for the equipment costs?
Yeah, we can work on that, and we'll put a CIP together for that, and then we'll include that plus your road and bridge CIP on the last page, or there'll be another page added, onto the budget as well, so that it's all there.
The other one I just was looking at is planning and zoning part-time employees.
That's for the P and Z commission members, they get paid
Right.
at the end of the year.
Right, so there's 7 of them at $20 a meeting.
Some of them don't,
Well,
oh, okay.
so there's 7 of them at $20 a meeting. It's $148 per person if they take it. So it's $980. If we aren't contemplating increasing the size of that, right now we're budgeting $1,500. And the most we had was 2014, and that was $968. So I mean, we could take that, it's $500. We could take that out of there, go down to 1,000, because it doesn't, if they want to do seminars and stuff, that's farther down.
Yeah, but then you also gotta, so you'd actually probably be a little bit more than 1,000 maybe, because there's also Medicare, match as well, the city's portion. So you gotta take that into consideration as well.
So that 15 doesn't include all that already?
Well, the 1,500 does.
Yeah.
But when you're
Okay.
saying take it $20 or $20 per meeting,
Okay.
12
Oh,
meetings.
okay, I get what you mean. Okay, so,
Yeah.
so if we look at other years, it was 968, 925, last year was 701. So that, at the highest, was 968 and 14. So that would have included the city's contribution to,
But it may not have included 7. I'd have to look at the number of how many.
were on at the
Yeah,
time.
and how many of them took money. We have
Right.
some committee members that choose not to be paid.
Correct.
So I have to look at who and how many and who put in
Okay.
to be paid.
but you got a budget for it, cause that could change.
Well, you would budget for that, if we have 7 people, you would budget that all of them are gonna take 7.
Correct.
All 7 are gonna take, you wouldn't cut back as
Correct.
they used to
Yeah.
do.
No, I'm
Yeah, no,
saying
you would take
when
the
they
7
were,
at
back in
140 a month,
2014.
times 12, and then figure
They're
whatever
still
our
coming out of a
portion
different
is.
location because they were paid differently.
That's what I'm saying, they would have been paid, they would have been one of the 7, but they
Yeah,
would have been paid out of the council budget.
yeah.
You remember that back then, the council members were paid for that, but they weren't paid out of this budget, they were paid out of the council budget.
Okay.
So now we have 7 members that are
Well,
all.
I thought it was when it was up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it would be 100, if all 7 of them took it, it's 140 a month, or excuse me, 140 a year, times 7 is 980. And then whatever our contribution is, add to that, and I'm assuming it's less than 1,500.
And typically, except for one time,
Right.
back this year, I guess.
So 2 or 3, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Why is that?
So,
Yeah.
but that's the thing, if people
I just shot them 2 different sizes, I wasn't sure how.
have some notions, that's what we would want.
Yep.
If this number comes in so big, if we're talking about $112,000 increase, I've got a feeling it's gonna be a choking number, we need to go back and say,
Yeah, these guys do all the,
All right, well, I will enter that meeting on my computer at home, because I'm not gonna do it on my phone.
Everybody gets a notice from Mary tonight about a meeting.
I didn't, I said I'm gonna do it on my computer, because for some reason it does that on the phone. I don't know why.
On the wedding in bed, but
Never used to do that. Okay, can we adjourn if there's nothing else?
Everybody okay with adjourning here?
Motion to adjourn.